At Center for Spiritual Living Beaumont, we believe in spiritual living. Above all else, it is a philosophy that teaches us how to think and not what to think. We invite everyone to practice this philosophy by living in principle. We believe that God is all there is, and each person's relationship to God is a personal one. Every person, place, and thing, and all the space in between is not only an expression of God, but God itself. All love, peace, and beauty that is God exists within each person right now. Together we are all connected as one. Our faith allows us to apply this philosophy to our lives in every moment of every day. As we live in love, we see love revealed and flowing through the world around us. We act as citizens of this spiritual community at all times. This is how we think. We believe in God, we believe in ourselves, and we believe in you because we believe in spiritual living. We are the Center for Spiritual Living Beaumont.
God is omnipresent in, through, as each and every single person in this room, online, in the entire world, all through the universe. God is everywhere. All blessings. God is omniscient, all-knowing. There is no knowledge nor wisdom that does not exist within God. God is omnipotent. There is no greater power. Here and now, I am in this omnipotence, this omnipresence, this omniscience. I am here now in this room, knowing and trusting that all things that need to be said will be said, and all things that need to be heard will be heard. I am knowing and trusting that each and every person in this room is blessed to bring this message out into the world, and to bring that greater light that is God's revealing Himself in every space. I am knowing and trusting that this blessing comes through our speaker of the day, Neil Hayner. I am knowing and trusting that this message will be received by each and every person here and will be spread outward into the world to make that world a better place for each and every person. I am so grateful and thankful for these truths, and I live here in this blessing, this light, knowing and trusting that each and every bit of this thankfulness spreads outward from each person out into the world. I let go with my words. I release my word into the perfect action and order of the law, knowing it to be true, whole, and complete. And together let us anchor and affirm this prayer by saying, and so it is.
Well, good morning again. So it's been like, I guess a month, feels like 2 months since I've been here. But I see a ton of new faces, which is awesome. So just in case you don't know who I am, my name is Neil Hayner. I am a Center for Spiritual Living practitioner and I was going to say ministerial student extraordinaire. Still, it's been a while. I'm still there. I'm still doing it. At some point I will finish. Not sure when. Seems like it goes on forever. But I'm happy to be with you here this morning. It always feels like, walking in the door to a big family when I come back for the months. So I'm going to be with you all month, so I'm excited for that. And I always feel pretty at home up here on this stage. So I appreciate all the welcome and all the new faces. It's awesome. So CSL's yearly theme has been this year, Living Everyday Wonder. And I've really liked that theme because it talks about applying our spiritual teaching, applying our spiritual principles to our everyday life. And even that word wonder, right? As in, wow, that's amazing. Living everyday wonder. Every day is a wonder and has an awe-inspiring quality to it. But also, living every day, I wonder. Living in the question, living in the I wonder what this is about. So our topic this month is emotions. I know, heavy, right? Oh, it's not going to be that bad. Emotions. We're talking about all the different ways in our lives that our spiritual teaching shows up. So we've talked about play, we've talked about living the inner life, we've talked about creativity. So this is just another area of our life that our spiritual principles and our spiritual practices show up. And the talk this morning is what's on your spice rack. We'll get there. I like to open up with a story. So there was a tough, brawny samurai who once approached a Zen master who was deep in meditation. Impatient and discourteous, the samurai demanded in his husky voice that was used to forceful yelling, "Tell me the nature of heaven and hell." The Zen master opened his eyes, looked at the samurai in the face, and replied with certain scorn, "Why should I answer to a shabby, disgusting, despondent slob like you? A worm like you. Do you think I would tell you anything? I can't stand you. Get out of my sight. I have no time for silly questions." Now the samurai was used to being respected and feared and did not want to bear these insults. He threw down his sword and raised it up to sever off the Zen master's head. And looking straight into the samurai's eyes, the Zen master tenderly declared, "That's hell." The samurai froze. He immediately understood the anger had him in his grip. His mind had just created his own hell, one filled with resentment, hatred, self-defense, and fury. He realized that he was so deep in his torment that he was ready to kill somebody. The samurai's eyes filled with tears, and setting his sword aside, he put his palms together and bowed in gratitude to the Zen master for this insight. The Zen master gently acknowledged this with a delicate smile and said, "And that's heaven." So what does this all have to do with emotions? We all have moments like that in our lives when we get swept away by emotions, just like that samurai, whether we label them positive emotions or negative emotions. I know that it seems like emotions, our own and others, are always flying at us all day long, and we feel like we have to be a ninja to deal with them, to dodge them. But it's important to remember that our emotions are energy. In fact, it's right there in the word, emotion. It is energy in motion. They come into our body, they give us information, and they pass. This too shall pass. These emotions are just as important to our spiritual growth and our development and our spiritual practices. Because here's the truth. Our emotions reflect our belief. If you want to know what you believe about something, look at the emotions that you have surrounding that topic. Your emotions are broadcasting to you what you really believe. Because it's hard to make that journey from here to here, right? What's really in your heart, what's really in your emotional center is what's going to show up. Whether or not, it doesn't matter what you say or what you do. What you really have at the center of that emotional center is what you really believe. So our emotions reflect our beliefs. And our emotions are really important indicators of what is going on in our consciousness. Alcoholics Anonymous has a great acronym called HALT, H-A-L-T. And they say, never make decisions when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Why? Because when those emotions are running in our background, we don't tend to make very good decisions. Have you noticed? Yeah. And even though we call this the science of mind and spirit, Ernest Holmes talked a lot about emotions. He talked about the importance of emotional acceptance. You can say that you believe something, you can say that you accept something, but if you don't feel it, you don't really accept it. He talked a lot about what our emotions can tell us about what is going on in our consciousness and in our body. Because when our emotions are out of balance, it can show up in our body. When our bodies are out of balance, it shows up in our emotions. When we block our emotions and we block that creative energy from flowing in and through and as us, that energy has to go somewhere. Ernest Holmes talks a lot about how our emotions are the energy of the divine trying to flow through us. That energy, which we call God, is trying to find a channel of expression through us. And it's like we put a dam in the river. That water's going to go somewhere. We dam up the river, that water overspills its banks, and it goes everywhere, often places and in ways that we wish it didn't. When we block that emotional energy, when we block that universal flow from flowing through us, it can show up as undesirable situations, undesirable, unskillful behaviors, bad habits, things that don't serve us. Ernest Holmes says this in the book Ernest Holmes Papers. All psychological frustration is occasioned by the stoppage of a cosmic flow coming from the river of our own consciousness and flowing out into self-expression, so that the energy tending the emotion shall find release by expansion or by explosion. That energy is going to go somewhere, either by expansion or explosion. So it's important that we are listening to our body. It's important that we are listening to that energy. It's important that we are willing to feel our feelings. So the title this morning was What's on Your Spice Rack? And the idea is that our emotions are the spice of life. They're what give us depth and flavor to our experience. But like any spice, if you add too much of it, or if it's out of balance, and you don't use it intentionally and in the right balance and the right amount, the results can be bad tasting. Have you ever accidentally dumped some spices into your food? When I was writing about this, I was thinking about anger, right? Anger as an emotion is kind of like accidentally dumping a bunch of cayenne pepper into your food, right? So even though we call this the science of mind and spirit, we sometimes get in this place where we think that this spiritual teaching and this philosophy is all about what's happening up here. But that's just the beginning. There's a lot more depth to it. We hear this idea of like thoughts are things and create a mental equivalent and change your thinking, change your life, right? And we get the idea that this spiritual practice is all about what I'm thinking about. But it's also what you're feeling. Ernest Holmes even said that prayer has two parts to it, thoughts and feelings. You need the feelings behind the prayer. You need the presence behind the principle. That feeling that we have when we practice our spiritual practices like prayer and meditation are just as important as the thoughts that we're having. Ernest Holmes also says this: we recognize that we cannot do this work by intellect alone. Our work has a feeling about it, a feeling of the divine presence and the emotion of infinite love. As metaphysicians, or those who believe in spiritual mind healing, we do not deny physical facts or psychic facts, nor do we hesitate to affirm that there are spiritual facts. We should put them all together. The emotions affect the physical body, and the mind can either be destructive or constructive, according to the way it is used. And our emotions are a lot like that. They can be constructive or destructive, depending on how conscious we are of them, how aware and mindful we are of them, and what we do with them. You've probably heard, if you've been around CSL for a while, we have this great metaphor about the seed, the soil, and the plant, right? And we talk about our word or our thoughts being like the seed that we plant in the soil that then grows the plant. But if that's true, our feelings are the fertilizer. They're what help grow the seed that we're planting into our intention. We tend to label our emotions as either good or bad. Joy is good, sadness is bad. And in our teaching, we sometimes have this thing we like to call spiritual bypass, where if we feel like we have these emotions that we call negative, that we have to push them aside, we have to push them down. We can only say, you're having a really bad day, you're feeling kind of sad about something, and someone comes up to you and says, oh, how are you? And we feel like we have to say, oh, it's all good, God is good, it's all great. But that's not what we're feeling. That's not being authentic. That's spiritual bypass. Being awake, being aware, and being conscious means that we are mindful of our emotions. We're willing to hear them. We are willing to feel them. And when it's needed, we're willing to heal them. Emotions are energy in motion. It's like electricity. Electricity is not good or bad. But if you don't pay attention to it and you don't follow the rules about how it works, you might have a shocking experience. We have to be mindful and intentional about our emotions and being aware of them and what we do with them so that we can use them as the gifts that they are. Our emotions are not roadblocks. They are the path. They are the tools that we use to deepen in our spiritual practice and deepen in our awareness. When we do have these emotions, the place that we often feel them is in our body, at least for me. All of my emotions go right to my stomach. Have you ever been angry and felt energy in the top of your head? You've been stressed out and you feel the tension in your shoulders or the rest of your body. Emotions are energy in motion, and they show up in our body. So one of the ways that we want to pay attention to is the way that those emotions are showing up in our body. We might feel tears. We feel tightness in our chest, butterflies in our stomachs. This is how emotion gets our attention. We feel that energy, and the invitation is to stop, to halt, to pay attention, look for the gift and the information that is seeking to be known. And we ask this question: what are you here to show me? What are you here to show me? Think about a time in the last week when you've felt an emotion. Joy, anger, frustration, tiredness, anticipation. What was that emotion there to show you? Now, as it's true for most ministers, I think, when they tell you what the talk's going to be, it shows up as your life. It's the blessing and the curse. So I had a couple of experiences with this last week. My first one was I was tired and I was missing some self-care and hadn't really been keeping up with my spiritual practice for a couple of days. And I'm sad to say that I completely lost my temper at a coworker. It wasn't even, he said something that just really pushed my buttons. And he wasn't even saying it to me. He was saying it to somebody else, and I happened to overhear him. And I completely lost my temper, and I called him a jerk. I know, tough, right? But it's pretty unusual for me to lose my temper. But like I said, I was tired, hadn't been keeping up my spiritual practice, and he just hit that button, right? Has that ever happened to you? Yeah. And I always love that saying of, I may push your buttons, but I didn't install them. He pushed my button, but he didn't install the button, right? What had installed that button for me was the fact that I hadn't been taking care of myself. I was tired, I was having a rough day, and he just happened to hit it just right. And I went, poof. But when I have that experience, my second thought was, well, that wasn't very ministerial. And the next thought is, what is that emotion there to show me? It's there to show me that I hadn't been taking care of myself. It brought attention to the fact that I was tired and I needed to rest. The second experience I had with emotions this week was I found out that a friend of mine who I hadn't talked to in a couple of months passed away, and I was not even aware of it. And I went to go wish her happy birthday yesterday and found out that she was no longer on this planet. And so in that moment, there was a deep sadness, right, and grief. But what I also know from my own personal experience is that grief is leftover love. That sadness can easily be changed to gratitude. And so I took that opportunity to become grateful for all the ways that she had supported me in my first 5 years of being a teacher, which are rough years, and the humor that she had brought to that experience. So when we have these emotions, the opportunity is to go within and say, what is this trying to show me? How can I use this for my own spiritual growth, for my own spiritual deepening? This month, we're going to be looking at some big emotions that we often experience. Their challenges and their gifts from both a spiritual perspective and from a place of spiritual practice. We're going to be looking at fear, joy, anger, and sadness. And we're going to be asking that question over the next couple of weeks. What are they here to show me? And how can I use these emotions in my spiritual growth and my own spiritual journey? So I have some questions for you. Are you ready? So we have these 5 emotions, 5 big emotions. And I firmly believe in the spiritual art of inquiry, of asking questions. Asking questions is the most powerful spiritual practice that we teach here at CSL. Why did I react that way? Why do I believe that? How is this showing up in my life? And one of these days, I'm going to write a book about that. It's back there, in the back of my head. So I have some questions. I have 5 emotions and some questions that you can ask yourself this week when you might feel yourself having these moments. The first one is anger. The question is, what is no longer serving me and needs to be changed or ended? What is no longer serving me and needs to be changed or ended? Number 2, fear. The question we ask ourselves with fear is, what needs to be learned or faced? Number 3, sadness. What or who do I need to grieve and let go of so something new can emerge? Number 4, joy. What do I need to appreciate and celebrate completely? And number 5, creativity. What do I need to create and bring into the world? When you feel these emotions, anger and fear and sadness and joy and creativity, you get to tap into that gift, tap into that potential spiritual gift by asking yourself these questions. And if you can't think of the specific questions, just ask, what are you here to show me? Just by asking the question, you become more conscious, more aware, more mindful of what's going on for you. So this week, I invite you to be mindful of your emotions. And as they arise, feel them in your body, whatever that shows up like. And ask that question, what are you here to show me? This is a great opportunity for the spiritual practice of journaling. My suggestion this week, have a piece of paper or a notebook. Keep track of those moments and those emotions that come up for you this week. Whether you label them good or you label them bad. And ask that question, what are you here to show me? And write down the answers. It's a great spiritual practice to become aware of your emotions and then look at what beliefs are behind them. So this is another opportunity to meet with a practitioner. If you're having these emotions and you're not sure what the beliefs are behind them, or you want some support in dealing with them, that's what the practitioners are here for you. So, to wrap all this up, let me just say this. When we recognize the gift of our emotions, they become the avenue, the channel for our spiritual growth and practice. When our emotions are expressed in balance and intention, they become the spices that add depth and flavor to our lives. And I look forward to exploring this idea with you for this month and growing and deepening in this awareness. And so it is. So I invite the practitioners and ministers who are present here this morning to join me in the consciousness and the atmosphere of prayer this morning. So we enter into that consciousness, that space, that place, that energy, that presence where we know that there is only one power. One power, one presence, one principle that is constantly operating, creating, sustaining, and inspiring the entire universe. It is at the center, it is at the circumference of everything I see and everything I do not see. Everything that is known and everything that is not known is taking place in the infinite space, the infinite energy of God, of intelligence, of wisdom, of infinite love, infinite grace, infinite peace. It is all of that and more. It is that which we call God. And it is at the center, it is at the circumference of everything that I know. Everything that I can know is God. And knowing that is true, I know that I live and move and have my being from that awareness, from that divine inheritance, from that divine good. And what I know is true about me, I know is true for you here this morning, within the sound of my voice, whether you are here in person or online. I know that you are a divine, perfect expression of God, that the infinite creative energy of God is flowing in, through, and as you right now. And knowing that is true, I know that whatever it is that feels like a lack or feels like a limitation is dissolved right here and now, here this morning. It returns back to the nothingness from which it came, because there is only one power. That power is God. There is no other power besides that one. And so I know that wherever there is a sense or a feeling of lack or limitation of abundance, I know that that abundance is right here and right now. Wherever there is the perception of dis-ease or disharmony, I know that wholeness and peace are winning the day, are the truth of whatever situation it is. I know that wherever there is a feeling of lack, of limitation, of things being out of balance, that balance is restored right here and right now. Whatever is needed, whatever is claimed in the silence of your own consciousness here this morning is present because God is present. And inside that infinite field of God, there can be no other. And so, knowing that all this is true, I give thanks for this knowingness. I give thanks for this consciousness. I give thanks for this truth and reality. I'm grateful for this building. I'm grateful for this community. I'm grateful for all of the volunteers that remind me of this spiritual truth. I'm grateful for this sense of presence in my life, that sense of principle in my life. And yes, I am grateful for even the most difficult emotions, for I know that they are the path, they are the practice, they are the invitation for deepening my awareness. And so in simple, great gratitude, I release this word into that infinite law that always says yes, that soil of the universe that grows whatever that is planted into it, knowing that it has everything it needs, just like the seed has everything it needs to grow. I know that my thoughts, my emotions, my word this morning has everything it needs within it to grow, just as it needs to grow in my life. And so in great gratitude and great surrender, I simply know this to be true, and I claim it here this morning, and so it is.
Thank you for joining us for our Sunday service. Please remember to like, comment, and share this video on Facebook, YouTube, and any other social media you are a member of. To donate to CSL Beaumont, you can text GIVE to 951-420-6909, or you can visit our website at cslbeaumont.org and click the donate button at the top or bottom of the page. You can also mail your donation to CSL Beaumont, 802 Maple Avenue, Beaumont, California, 92223. Have a blessed day, and namaste.